Good afternoon to all of you. Can somebody please confirm the visibility of the slide?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you. So now as we wind up, we'll just have some generic observations on management. Now, I specifically include this particular topic here as a concluding remark, more like, because the topic is on airport management. We have looked at the various aspects, what contributes to it, or the information which should go into the system or to the person who is to be responsible for the overall management of the airport or management of respective divisions of it. So, as laid out in the syllabus, we have looked at the various aspects of it, covering almost all activities that go across in the airport, in the various parts of the airport, and underlying guidance, regulations, etc. And also to the required extent, the background of the development, evolution of some of those activities, and some of the business aspects of it, etc. Now, all these are being discussed in the backdrop of this activity called management. So we'll just look at some of the generic aspects of it. And talking specifically about airport management, we have looked at the various issues related, or the diversity of activities, the diversity of issues, priorities, the information, diversity of regulations or procedures, and diversity of business interests, etc. Say from the perspective of the management of the airport authority, the airline companies, other stakeholders like those who operate with business cargo, etc. Then the interest of passengers, other customers, the retail users, the users of the retail space, etc. So it's like, as we once remarked in the course, it's like managing a whole city which has a large number of activities going under one umbrella. So the diversity of activities, the diversity of customers or stakeholders, the difference in their perspectives, the difference in their priorities, the difference in their interests, each of these are important for the overall scheme of management of the airports. Now, the complexity of the whole task comes because there will be conflicts between the interests of various stakeholders. There may be also there may be conflicts between the interests of some of the stakeholders and the laws and regulations which have to be followed, etc. So there is enough scope for extensive efforts to be put into to the activity of management of airports to make sure that everything goes on smoothly and there is a peaceful coexistence, a happy coexistence among all the stakeholders of the facility. So what unites all these, or what strikes coordination between all these activities and sort of makes things go smoothly is what we call here in the context of airport management. This is what we call, in the context of airports, this is what we call as the management. Now, it may not be one person, it will be a team that is in charge of the management of various divisions of the airport. We have looked at the possible organizational structure, etc., for airports. There can be divisional managers for various areas. There will be staff reporting to them, and then these managers will be reporting to the senior level, etc., etc. So all these should act. All these people should act as one team, and that is where the coordination comes, and that is where the lessons of management become very important. The information of the the information regarding the various activities, the information regarding the rules and regulations, the information regarding the interests of the various stakeholders, information about the expectations and possible conflicts, etc., are important to be fed into the system of management so that the overall management proceeds as desired, as required. Okay, now beyond all this, so what we have considered so far are the various divisions or the activities or the business interests or the convenience or the priorities, etc. Now, beyond all this, the process of management involves managing people, right? That goes without saying. We know that in management, when you look from the academic perspective, there are various categorizations, like finance management, financial management, or HR, human resources management, IT management, sales management, marketing management, etc. So you have different categories of management where different set of different skill set and different expertise, different approaches, different interests and attitude, etc. are required. But more commonly, when we talk about all these, including the management of facilities like airports, the whole thing includes basically the management of people. This rare species called human being. So eventually, all these activities, now wherever you call it, whatever name you give it, whatever expertise you demand for it, etc., all that eventually boil down to managing the people. So any of these, now we are not talking specifically about airport management, but what we are talking now applies to airport management also. So we are talking more on a generic sense about management now. It all basically involves the management of people, managing the people, managing human beings. So this awareness, or the being aware that, or being all the time being informed that the the basic principles of management should address the requirements of the need or essential aspects that are related to managing the people. That is that is essential for a manager to have all the time. You probably may not have it all the time with all the managers, but it's an essential thing. That is, a manager should be able to differentiate between managing, as I just mentioned, the general species called human being, and managing the individual. Now, we just say that it's all managing the human beings. In the further analysis, in the final analysis, it's like managing the individual. So if somebody is reporting to you, if you are in charge of the organizational responsibility as per the organizational hierarchy of the performance of a person, you are actually managing an individual. Now, you in most situations, you probably cannot generalize it. You cannot say that, yes, it's like people, we conveniently use the term people management. In fact, in the previous slide, I mentioned that we are going to, the whole thing involves people management. That is correct. But then, even the term people is not specific enough in the actual practice of management. The more appropriate term, or the more appropriate approach should be that you are managing the individuals, which means that the person has to be managed in a way that suit that particular person. Now, having said that, this can be an issue when you have larger teams to manage it. Usually, in the terminology or in the industrial practices of modern management, the reporting or the recommended reporting structure or recommended organizational structures follow some kind of a principle, some kind of principles, which usually suggest that there should not be more than 5, 6, 7. I've seen 7 as a maximum number in many of the suggestions. Yeah, there should not be more than say let us say 5 to 7 people reporting to one person. So now think of your organizational level structures, etc. There should be, the teams should be structured in such a way that to one person, the people who directly report to him or her should be limited to 5 to 7. So, and then if you have more, and then you can have more branches to the reporting. Then that is, you have subordinates, and they themselves can have their subordinates who report to them, etc. So that kind of a structure has to be in place. And so that comes from the basic understanding or the basic appreciation of the fact that you have to be managing the individuals. So when you have 6 people, 5, 6, 7 people to manage, you have 5, 6, 7 individuals to manage. You cannot manage one person the same way as you manage the other. That's what I mean here by managing the individuals. Okay, so this is one basic understanding that a manager should have. Now I'm saying this in the context of the subject, and also in the context that many of you may be sincerely interested in management as a career option going forward. And some of you, even if you are not interested, probably in future you will have to take leadership roles, whether you like it or not. So in all such situations, it's important to keep this in mind, that you should be managing the individuals, or your perspective that should be that you are responsible for the performance. You are responsible for guiding the performance of individuals, and that kind of an attention may be required most of the time. Okay, so that is one basic aspect which has, and the reason why I emphasize this again and again is because the failure of many of the managers or the failure of many of the organizational systems, failure of many of the teams stem from the fact that the management is treated more like discipline, or more like a common activity without specific or individual attention. So that has to be realized by those who take any people management responsibilities. So that also goes. So in the specific topic of our interest, specific to airport management, this is important. Say we have discussed about managing, say, like the terminal area, managing the passenger access systems, managing the cargo services, the logistics, etc. But then when though we say that as managing say like the baggage handling system, basically we are talking about managing people who supervise them, or managing people who are responsible to them, managing people who actually follow through those processes. So everything finally boils down to managing people, managing the individuals. So in the context of the airport management also, what we are now talking about is also applicable to each of the sections, each of the departments, each of the scheme of activities that come under the purview of the airport management. Okay, now going in parallel to this is another issue related to management. Management is not managing an infinite resources. Or rather, it's not managing without constraints on the resources. In fact, the importance of management, or the very relevance of management, comes because all activities have to be accomplished within certain constraints. Now, the constraints can be of resources, of space, of money, of time, constraints of people, constraints of information, constraints of expertise, etc. So, but it or maybe a combination of all these. But invariably, any activity that you take up in any section, any discipline or any part of management, any division of any given organization, there are going to be a large number of constraints within which a person or a team will have to work with. So, working to meet the goals and objectives subject to the constraints is where the importance of management or the relevance of management comes. So it's like managing to work with the available resources subject to the imposed constraints. This is also important, and particularly for you people who actually move out from the campus life to industrial, to those who are actually directly going to the industries, or those who will be there in future will be moving to industries, etc. This aspect is also important because quite often it is observed that particularly I think I should say that particularly in Indian context, students come to industry, or students go to industry with a lot of baggage or a lot of hangover from their student life. So a lot of things that apply to student life, your studies, your academics, you assume that students seem to assume that they apply to industrial environment also, which is precisely wrong. And one such instance, I'm not going to all the details of, but one such instance where I've seen, I personally have observed this, and many times I had to address this, etc., in my previous incarnation, I should say, that when I was in industry, is this one that that not realizing that you have to work within available resources. That's the reason why I put this point here. I usually tell this to students. Unlike the marks you get, I guess if you ask me, I think we all from the student life, we all go to industry with the notion that we have infinite resources to tap from. This is true for marks. That is, I'll try to clarify this. So when say in midterm or in some, etc., when I give marks, say if the question paper is out of 50 or 100, I can give full marks to the whole class, right? Because I'm not, when I give marks to somebody, I'm not taking it from a limited kitty. So if everybody has written completely well, perfectly correct answers to all questions, etc., nothing stops me from giving, say, 50 out of 50 or 45, say 45 to everybody, or 45 to, in the range of 45 to 50 to everybody, if everybody has written to that level. Okay, this that is because I'm not taking marks from a limited kitty. This does not work the same way in industry. Let's take this. It is a little bit too gross to talk about money, etc. Probably that will be the most obvious example that I can cite. This, say, when you in industry, you will have like similar to exams, you will have your performance appraisal, etc., where the staff would justifiably expect increase in their remuneration, etc., year on year, and stuff like that. But then it is quite obvious. It is quite obvious that you are not being paid from an infinite kitty. The person who is responsible for your increment, etc., has a limited budget to operate with. Okay, whereas the what our students life or academic this one has sort of trained our minds to think in such a way that you don't have a constraint on the resources. But then, so probably you will be in a shock first time when you see that when you are given a higher amount, or when your colleague is given being a higher amount, that actually comes from the amount that would have been given to you as well. Okay, so between A and B, two colleagues, B gets a higher amount than A. That's because the boss, the person who is managing the resources, has a total amount which can be shared between A and B. So no way that he can meet the expectations of both A and B because the resources are limited, unlike in the case of Marx. Okay, so this kind of this, I just gave an example, probably not a very appeasing one, but then I just, the point that I want to drive home is that you have to work within constraints. Okay, and these constraints will be larger and larger, more and more, as you take up more challenging tasks, as you go higher in the ladder in the organizational structure. Okay, so that's what I want to highlight here. So the world of management is is a world of limited supply. Okay, unlike, again, I want to re-emphasize this. Unlike the Marx, Marx is not coming from. I don't lose anything. I don't have to take someone else's marks when I have to give you the marks. If you deserve it, you get it. That's all. Okay, nobody stops me from doing that. Not so when it comes to other benefits like remuneration. Okay, so the remuneration is a gross example, but what I'm saying is when you have, in terms of human resources, in terms of time that is allotted, in terms of other infrastructural facilities, etc., all this concept of or this reality of limited supply always applies, and that is where the skill of a manager should come in, so that he or she will be able to meet or achieve the goals, the set objectives and goals while working with the limited resources. So then, usually this in the same context, the question comes whether one should become a good manager, a strong manager, a nice manager, a strict manager, etc. All these stupid adjectives keep coming up, and then comparison among managers, among colleagues, among this one, etc. will be there. And you yourself would like to say, when you have a managerial responsibility, you yourself would like to put your stature or the description that most suits you. That depends a lot to the way that you are trained, the way that you think, or the way that you tend to be to handle or respond to the challenges, the way that you respond to the situations where you have to work within constraints, etc. So these like all these adjectives, like whether one is a good manager or a strict manager or a nice manager or a strong manager, etc., come quite often. But then where you should fit yourself is that should come from within yourself. And the only thing that I would like to highlight here as a observation or as a suggestion or a remark is that don't do it to your subordinates which you don't want to be done to you. Actually, I'm adapting it from a famous line, which is in another in one of the famous. Actually, let me say that this is from a line from Mahabharata. I'm just adapting it to the terminology of management. Don't do it to your subordinates which you don't want to be done to you. So if you just keep that in mind when you work with your team, with your colleagues. Actually, I just said as subordinate. It actually, you can put any words here. Don't do it to your colleagues, your superiors, your subordinates, whatever. And any word that you put there should be giving a good lesson, I would think. I would guess. So that is something which everybody has to keep in mind while working in systems, while working in organizations, and where you have, particularly when you have people responsibilities, when you are working in leadership roles, because that is where you have to make others also cooperate with you to achieve a set of laid out goals. So talking about that, that is achieving the goals. The task of a manager is to keep working and also to make others. I would use the word inspire others to achieve, to not just to work. Usually managers end up forcing others to work. I would rather correct it as you should inspire them to achieve. So the making to work, making to achieve are different. The way that they perceive their work, or the way that they perceive or they view or they look at their contributions, that is very important. So that should be made like they should feel that, or that should be made like to look like achievements. And that should be the way that a manager should inspire his or her team to achieve the goals and objectives that are laid out for the team. So at the time, the first thing is to work. So it's not that you just keep inspiring them, but you should be working you should be leading from the front, and at the same time, you should be inspiring them to achieve, to make the achievements. So this is an attitude which can, or an approach which can possibly do a lot of good to the team or the whole organization, depending on how well we are able to implement it or follow it. So these are just some generic thoughts on management, and listed here because we are talking about a management subject, and each of these apply to the specific topic of, or the specific domain of airport management as well. So now I guess it's time to pass down. I wind up the course. They've given today, I guess, as the last instruction day. So we stick to that. Most importantly, I thank all of you for your interest in the course, and also for the cooperation, particularly for going or putting up with the troubles of this so-called fast track course, and having to bear with me twice a day, the lectures, etc. So I particularly appreciate your cooperation, and the class has cooperated very well, particularly for those following up with those presentations and making them without too many reminders, etc. So uh, in most cases, the presentations were done very well. So I thank you all for your interest in the course. Interest in the course, I should elaborate that a bit. Actually, it's an elective, so I would assume that at least some of you took it out of your own interest. In fact, one person told me on my face that it was taken because there was no choice at all. I appreciate I appreciate that frankness, and probably on behalf of the department, I should be probably a bit apologetic also that we didn't give you enough choices. But I still feel that there will be at least some students who took it out of interest and out of choice. So either way, I thank the whole class for your attendance, your cooperation, and your interest in the course. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I wind this up. Sorry, any questions about the last part? Management, probably not. Any remarks on that again? Okay, you can take them up anytime. But then one question. There was, I guess I got one or two requests that the quiz has to be redone because some people could not take in the morning. Now I request your response. How many are there? There are many students who couldn't take it in the morning. Giridhar has raised hand. +1, +2. I cannot see the names. +3. Let me see. 3, 4 or so. Yeah, quite some people, I guess. So okay, so I repeat the question. Can we have it in the? I would like to finish it today itself. So can I have it? Say, can I put a missed quiz, at 5 o'clock this evening? 5 o'clock this evening. If anybody has
Sure.
convenience, let me know. Let's not have a third quiz again. So 5 o'clock this evening. Everybody is fine.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So let that be the deal. I'll set up a missed quiz. You will see it as a missed quiz. Again in AVMS. It will start at 5 o'clock today. Okay, so I believe that's all. That's fine with all of you, and I hope to be able to see all of you here early next week. Yes, the exams are 23rd, 24th. I don't know whether you have still been given the date to be present in the campus, but
No, sir, we are still not given the date.
not yet. Okay, fine. But I hope to see all of you next 23rd, 24th is next week, right? Yeah, next week. Yeah. So hope to see you all next week because exams are online. So I believe everybody will be coming here. Anything else we can discuss? Otherwise, we can stop here. Yeah. Okay then. So the missed piece will be 5 o'clock. Okay,
Sir, just
please.
sir, can you just brief on, I mean, as per your knowledge, about the employability at airports?
Oh, yes. Actually, if you ask me data from the real domain, I unfortunately don't have. But then last time when we discussed about offering this course, this was one reason why we decided to go for it actually. Because Nandu, actually, last time I offered it along with Dr. Nandu.
Yes.
He had some data. He said that there's a lot of demand for airport management. That is particularly aero engineers with knowledge in airport management because of the expansions that are going on and the PPP models, etc., where companies are actually interested in people who have any exposure to airport management. So that's something which sort of, I should say, inspired us to offer this course. So I guess that remains still. So though admittedly, I myself have not done a survey of the opportunities, but I have feel that it's there and it is growing.
Sir, are the aero engineers recruited to the management posts at the airports, or is it only?
No, I don't think any airport will insist on that. Probably doesn't make sense.
Yes.
It is
Yes.
say an essential qualification. I don't think anybody will say that you should have a degree in aerospace engineering. But all other this ones being same, I'm sure that an aero engineer will get a upper hand because he or she has
Okay, sir.
in-depth technical understanding of the main business of business that is associated with the airport. So from the employer's perspective, if I would say, I would expect that they will get preference when other factors are similar at the same level.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay then. If no other questions, we'll stop here today. Thanks again. Thanks to all of you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you. And see you all here next week. Thanks.